Hello and welcome to Daf Hashavua. My name is Yair Alon and I am a rabbi living in Brazil. This is a new series of videos to my channel and therefore this is my first video of this new series. But you can find other videos of my channel about the Parashiot of the Torah, about the Daily Zohar and about the Talmud. This series is called Talmud Vibes. The first two of this series I mentioned, about the Parashah and the Zohar, are in Portuguese, but you can enable subtitles to the language of your preference. Don't forget to check them out and enjoy. Well, since this is our first video on the series, I think an introduction to what is the Talmud is most welcome. If you know what the Talmud is, you definitely know it's quite an intimidating piece of literature due to its size. The Talmud is the central text of Rabbinic Judaism, and it presents the compilation of religious laws and teachings of great sages along the centuries. As Jews, we follow the Torah, the laws that God has given to Moshe Rabbeinu at Mount Sinai. In the Torah, we will find 613 mitzvot, or commandments, such as the one in Shmot, Exodus 23:25, commanding us, for example, to serve the Almighty. However, do notice that this commandment does not tells us any detail about the commandment. How am I supposed to serve the Almighty? When and where are we to fulfill this mitzvah? Are we to do it alone or in group? Do I serve Him with sacrifices, as it was in the time of the temple, or with prayers, or in any other way? If with prayers, does it have to be in Hebrew? How many times a day are we to pray, and what should we say during the prayer? See where am I going? As we do not have any details in the Torah about the commandments, it was up to the sages from Moses on to tell us how to fulfill these commandments. And from the first centuries of the Common Era on, the sages started to write down these instructions for the future generations, for us. Why they did it? Because our ancestors were being expelled from their homeland, persecuted by the Romans, and the Jewish community needed solid guidelines in order to remain faithful to God and be able to continue to follow Judaism and to have the mitzvot fulfilled. So, making it short, this is why and how our sages wrote the Talmud. And this is why we study it until today. Because from the Talmud we learn the sages' wisdom so as to remain connected to our faith, our roots, and our culture. Now, the Talmud is a very lengthy series of texts. It is comprised of many tractates, and studying it without a systematic approach would certainly result in a waste of energy. That is why there are two systems usually employed by those who wish to devote themselves to learning the Talmud: the Daf Yomi and the Daf Hashavua. In the Daf Yomi method, one has a specific part of the Talmud, called a daf, a page, to read on a daily basis. If you follow this method, you will have covered the entire Talmud roughly in a 7-year period. Now, the Daf Hashavua is a different system, which takes a lot longer, of course, because in it you will read only a daf, a page, per week. It will take you over 50 years, in fact. But it's a very good system to those who do not have the possibility or the discipline to face a Daf Yomi system of study. Although this series of videos is called Daf Hashavua, my aim here is a little different. Not all Jews want to have full mastery of the Talmud. And if they do, maybe YouTube is not the place for that. You could reach me out in the private, and we can have private classes for that in another place. So what I hope to offer you here in this new series of videos is only a digest of the Daf Yomi scheduled for every week, but presented in a single video. Basically, I will take the 7 dapim, plural of daf, studied in the week, and bring a summary of them to you, focusing on one or two of the main points covered so as we can reflect together on their meaning. And I hope we can build something together through your participation in the comments below. I will try my best always to take all the legal discussion in the Talmud pages as something to think about, and when possible to apply to our daily lives and use in the real world. How would you like that? So, according to the Dafyomi program I mentioned, we just finished the tractate dealing with family laws, such as marriage and divorce, and we are now entering a new topic and a new order called Nezikin, namely damages. This order of Nezikin is subdivided into 8 specific tractates. The first one is named Bava Kamma and deals more specifically with liabilities and compensation for damages inflicted on people or property. If we read the long introduction about categories and subcategories of damage, be it to a person or an animal, deliberate or not, we might think our sages might have been overly concerned with material possessions. What is all this fuss about property? Shouldn't we focus on spiritual matters? Isn't it all quite petty to squabble over possessions? The answer is clearly no. We are not discussing only possessions, as if material things were detached in part from spirituality and religion. From the very beginning of Bava Kamma, we must realize that we are discussing but the right of one individual, and if he has or has not this right to affect the community and the limits of this freedom. We are discussing the commitment and the responsibility that we have to one another as members of the Jewish family. Either we follow the ethics of the Torah and try to be mindful of others, or we may as well be detached from our communities and sink into a world of selfish alienation. Bava Kamma presents us with the consequences of our actions in 2 different scenarios, in regard to protecting possessions and well-being of others, or when we show our aloofness and neglect for others. For example, imagine cases in which our animals are damaging someone else's property, or in which we dig a pit in the street and do not warn others about it. The Talmud will say that we must be aware that other people might fall into the pit, and we should know that an animal of ours might attack, trample, or otherwise damage people's properties, or even people themselves. A conscious person has to have this in mind at all times. So Bava Kamma actually presents us with spirituality embodied in physical matter, as it is concerned with people's livelihoods, people's rights to their dignity and integrity, and overall protection of the members of community. If we cause damage to anyone, whether deliberately or not, we might be endangering the person's possibility of providing for their family, for example, or even putting their lives at risk. As we all know, life is the most precious value in Judaism and Torah. If we really mean it when we sing Oseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Israel, make peace among us and over all Israel, we must think about all this sentence entails. There is a direct connection between the matters discussed in Bava Kamma and peace, shalom, as we clearly see in the shoresh, the root of the verb leshalem. The verb means to pay what we owe, and then we are even, which means we have no debt to one another. But more than that, we are making peace among us and in the world. Bava Kamma text teaches us that we do bear consequences to the community, and we should always think of others when we carry out our duties around them, even if minor daily tasks. Thus, we should not regard Bava Kamma merely as a sort of compensation booklet trying to establish how much one should pay for doing X or Y. It is an invitation to reflect on how much our material world should mirror our spiritual bonds, and how much our actions reverberate in the creation. It is a tractate on how much others matter to the single individual. Emmanuel Levinas, a Jewish philosopher born in Lithuania, reminds us that the face of the other, that which is not myself, always imposes its presence, and we are forced to live with his otherness. The moral and ethical responsibilities of having to relate with this other are absolutely reflected in Bava Kamma. The other is the most immediate possibility of transcending the I. Yes, Bava Kamma is about oxen destroying things and the risk of animals biting and damaging things owned by others. It is about neglecting our duty to safeguard my property and about being responsible and compensating for what I have done. But it is above all about understanding that we are not an island and that to be Jewish means to be together. It is about knowing that God's work is not expressed in words of prayers to be said in the synagogue, but that his love and wisdom permeate our every breath, and that life in community is one of the most important expressions of what it means to be Jewish. So please share with me, what do you think about this new project? And what are your thoughts about our first reflections on this first dapim, these first pages of the Talmud? Tell me what you did enjoy and what are the reflections this video brought to you. Please share with me in the comments. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and to subscribe. Also, make sure to check our other projects and videos. If you believe my video has helped you in any way, please also consider becoming a member of the channel via YouTube support and membership and Patreon. Thank you for watching and wish you a fruitful week with your Torah and Talmud studies. Stay healthy, stay tuned, and see you next week. Shavua Tov.